welcome to Career View Mirror. I'm your host, Joyelle Crawford, and I have a very special guest, Michael Sherlock, who is the CPO of Shock Your Potential. Shock Your Potential.
Shocking.
We're shocking our potential today. I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
I am happy to be here as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I've got tons of questions. First of all, what is a CPO? It's not 3CPO. So
no, but I could do that dance.
Nobody
wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. You know, my business is called Shock Your Potential. And as I was, building this organization over the last few years and, figuring out what do you put on a business card and how do you describe what you do. So, one day I had CEO, one day I had something else. And then I'm like, wait, I'm the Chief Potential Officer because I am a training and development company and I help people and businesses find their potential in leadership and sales. So why not call myself the Chief Potential Officer? Plus, it gets people to stop and ask the question,
sure
what the heck does that stand
Yes,
for?
it does. It's perfect. It's great marketing and branding.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. So, when you were forming your business, what inspired you? How did you get on this path? Take us down your career view. Let's look back in your career view mirror and find out.
Boy, what a career view I've had. Because I think about where I started. Long ago, I started out as a school teacher. So my degree was in elementary education. And I only taught for 1 year because the city I lived in, I had a 1-year grant-funded position in a Catholic school. At the end of the year, the grant didn't come through again, and they were letting teachers go all over my city because there weren't enough kids coming into the schools. So teachers with a lot of tenure were being let go, and I didn't have a shot at getting a new position. So I went into the business world. And from that point, I never looked back, and I'm very pleased because an education degree teaches you a great deal about what your own potential is and how to pull that out of others. But what I found is I could apply it in business in so many ways. And I actually started a training company in my mid-20s.
Wow.
But I wasn't worldly enough. I didn't think big enough then to see where it really could go. And frankly, I needed more experience. I really did. And as time went by and I had, increasingly important positions in terms of responsible for hundreds and hundreds of people and hundreds of millions of dollars, in the back of my head there was still this question of at what point in time are you going to turn this into something just for you? And the opportunity came 3 years ago. And at first I thought I'd just be speaking and writing my books. And now I can say that I own a global training company focused especially on leadership and sales leadership.
Which is right up my alley. It's so funny, a friend of mine introduced me to you or said, you need to talk to this lady. And I find that even in our initial conversations, there's so much knowledge to just suck out of your brain. So I was so glad that you decided to come on the show.
Hopefully some of it stays in there every once in a while.
I don't want to leave you too depleted. But there's just so much experience and life lessons that you lend to it, and I was leaning on the speaking part of your business, but also the writing and how do you get the potential out of these businesses? How do you get that to work? Because I'm in the leadership business as well. So how do you help them? How do you get that potential out?
The first thing I do with any individual or business is I talk about how we need to reflect, which is so perfect looking at career view and thinking about a career view mirror, because only by looking back can you really understand what you've learned and how much you've grown and developed. But at the same time, I do so much work with helping companies understand, do we have the right leaders in place? Have we trained them? In most cases, they haven't trained them at all.
Absolutely.
How do we get rid of ones that are toxic? How do we make sure we don't lose ones that are great? How do we find bench players? And so what I say is, first of all, to you as a business, you're going to have to look in the mirror yourself and say, here's where we have gone right, here's where we've gone wrong, and we're willing to make the change. And that comes down to the individual level as well. So as I move people through a process that involves reading my books, having live trainings, one-on-one assessments, some career coaching, it really is about being willing and able to sit back and say, okay, I'm going to look as objectively at myself as I can, and I'm going to seek outside input from people who are going to give me as objective of input as they can, and I'm not going to let it hurt my feelings.
Right.
And I'm not only going to listen for the great things, and I'm going to use those pieces to take me to the next level. Because the potential's all inside of us, but if we only use just this much of it because we're afraid of opening up to the parts that we're vulnerable, then we're always going to stay within that boundary that's going to keep us from not moving that next level of potential.
And then playing small.
Yeah.
Playing small, leading small, and then we're getting small results.
Absolutely.
And no business wants that.
Absolutely.
So that's great. That's fantastic. Do you find any resistance? Like, how do you deal? I mean, obviously, having to look at the realistic, the realities of how you lead or how you're leading your organization can be a little off-putting or a little blindsiding. How do you deal with that or help people work through that resistance?
There is a lot of resistance. And number one, a lot of times the resistance is because people are afraid. Because if I expose this part of me that's not perfect, and my company has trusted me in this position of leadership, maybe they won't want me anymore. So instead, I'm going to dig in and I'm going to hold myself in this fortress of what I think is right. And what that does is it keeps you from growing and expanding, but it also is what proves that you're not the leader that that company needs over the long term. And so it's a really big juxtaposition there about what we think, what we believe, and what we want. So I challenge people and I push them and I say, here's your mirror. And I know it's not a mirror, I know it's my hand, but you take it around with you everywhere. And sometimes you need to stop and go, how am I looking right now? And it's not really good. Or, hey, this is okay and I want to keep doing this. But you have to be your own conscience. You have to be your own Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder. And if not, I'm going to help you with that. And sometimes it's going to be painful. I'm very blunt with people, and not in a way that is ever, hopefully, offensive, but very direct, because I want people to be direct with me. So if I have to say, Joelle, I have to tell you, we have to talk about what I just observed in your interaction with some of your employees. Now, before I just tell you what I've observed, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. How do you think it went? What was the best thing that came out of it? Did you find any struggles, any challenges? And I'm going to pull as much of it out of you as I can. And at one point in time, I'm going to say, I need to share some things with you that are going to be a little difficult to hear. So let's talk through them. And the reason I'm sharing with them is I know you can get better. The question is, are you ready to change? And so then there's that moment of fear, and then I'll say, and I'll start with little things as we go along. And it's that sense of, okay, let's talk about this. Here's one thing I observed. Now let's talk about why I observed this as a challenge. What do you think of that? And try and engage. And some people will come out on the other side very, very well, and their leadership will just flourish. Others, are incapable of that. And that tells me that's somebody that company does not need for the long term, because they will cause more damage than any little bit of positives over time.
Right. And you need to be willing to grow. And I think that's a big leadership lesson. It's a life lesson.
Absolutely.
Is to being open to giving feedback as well as to receive that feedback. And I used to say all the time in my training classes, feedback is a gift. You could take it, you could leave it, you could re-gift it, but it's something that you need to realize that it is a gift to have, and if you're not using it, then that there's a short-sightedness there that's going to end up being detrimental to the organization and to your career.
Absolutely. It really does limit people, and I don't think that they see it often, because there is a natural desire within all of us to say, but we're okay. They gave me this position, they hired me, they promoted me, and to recognize that it's okay if you don't have all the skill set, as long as the company's willing to invest in you, you're willing to invest in yourself, and you're willing to take some chances. That's when growth happens.
That's exactly when the growth happens. It's fabulous. Love this. Love it. Love leadership talk. So where did you learn all of this? Did it come out of your brain from all of the experiences? I know a lot of the lessons I've learned in good leadership come from great leaders that I've worked with and not so great leaders that I've worked with. Where did it all come from for you?
I just read a stat that was part of a recent Gallup poll, and it said that of leaders currently in positions, only 10% of them, or actually less than 10%, possess natural leadership abilities. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? Because I've always seemed to have it at some level. But when I look back at the biggest areas of growth in my life, it's when I've been forced out of just what I was good at and put in positions where I was not good and I struggled.
Right.
And I had that conflict and I had some very uncomfortable moments. And so from that, I put those things into place. And most of the time, with as much grace as I could have, I would say, okay, well, you really screwed that up, Sherlock. And, you know, and be able to go, okay, now what do you learn from this? What have you taken from it? And like you, and like what you've said, we've all had really good leaders, or some people that we've seen as leaders. We've had really poor ones, and we've been good or been poor ourselves at various times. I think the real difference for me right now, especially with how I lead and I train and I try and talk to people about this within themselves, is that sense of be vulnerable, it's okay. That's how you get better and better and better.
And it's that self-acceptance and self-talk that,
Yes.
that really helps, because I mean we can beat ourselves up so badly
Easily.
when we're trying to learn life lessons, especially leadership lessons, the hard way. It's never easy. It's always the hard way. But I think that's fantastic about kind of taking pieces of your life lessons and then applying that to the success of other organizations.
And that's why sometimes when you have somebody in front of you and they are into sports or they are into cooking or whatever their hobby is, and you can take things that are about the development of that part of their life and you can bring it into the leadership lesson you're trying to teach at the moment, then you have people who say, okay, now I understand.
Yeah, and it makes it more relevant. I think when you connect the dots that way, it really helps them understand what they're supposed to be and how they can kind of apply it to their everyday life.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to take a break and look at some of your wonderful words of wisdom, and then come back and I want to learn more about you, Michael Sherlock, the woman. All right, so we're going to talk more after this short little break.
Anybody in this room ever feel like it's easier to do something yourself than teach somebody else to do it? And don't look at your husbands if they're here. It's a common issue we all face, is that when we're so busy or we know something so well, that if we do it ourselves, we know we can also do what? Do it well. We can do it better. We can control. Do we feel sometimes if we do it ourselves, we have more control? Because if you feel like you're in control, but you are always controlling, who's really in control? So we've heard about, the concept of how many monkeys you carry on your back. You can only carry so many monkeys before they pull you down. Every time we solve and we don't develop others, we're just carrying around more monkeys. We feel like we're in control, but we're really not. So this really came to a head with me when I was on vacation with my husband. We were in Ireland for the first time, enjoying it thoroughly, except for the fact my phone kept ringing. Everyone knew I was on vacation, but why do you think they kept calling or emailing? They were trained that way. What else? I was efficient? Of course I was. I'm fabulous. Just ask me, I'll tell you. Yes, I was efficient. I could give them quick answers so they could have a rapid solution. They were used to me solving the problems. I trained them that way. And it was the first time I had to look at myself in the mirror. I always say this is my mirror. I travel with it everywhere. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, Michael, you don't look very good right now. Because you got to look at that and realize it's not their fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. How tough is that for them to have to call me on my vacation? That doesn't feel good. I don't think they wanted to call me. But they either felt they had to, I trained them that way, that was what they knew, or they were afraid to make decisions on their own because they didn't know if I would trust them with the outcome. Anybody in this room?
I'm like, there's the mirror.
We're talking about the mirror. We're here at Career View Mirror, talking about Michael Sherlock's mirror, and you just saw her speaking about, it's easier to do it ourselves, and some of the leadership challenges that we deal with, when we're delegating, and it's easier to just pick it up and do it, but there's so much power and richness in teaching others. And how to do it. And we have to look at ourselves sometimes in that mirror.
And that's really the only way for us to evolve as well as leaders, because I always say if you're really invested in yourself as a leader, you will train the people that report to you now to be able to take your job. And they'll panic and say, wait, what do you mean I won't have a job? If you have done the right thing, you have moved yourself to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what a joy to invest in other people's future.
That was one of my most, aside from all of the other wonderful things of leading and developing the team members that I had when I had direct reports, that was one of my crowning jewel moments, is to have some of the people that I helped grow and lead and develop take over my spot. And and watch them from afar and see how they were leading and guiding my team and drawing it to more success. And that's just a wonderful success story and kind of like just a notch on your tool belt.
Absolutely.
I was like, I am a good leader.
Exactly.
And people still call, and ask for advice. So that is a sign of your legacy.
I had someone who reported to me several years ago, and then he left before I left that organization. And he called me about 6 or 8 months afterward, and he said, I know it's no secret that I didn't always like working for you. And which was okay. I knew he didn't always. I knew that I had a different style. And he goes, and I tried to follow the path that you had. And he said, now I am leading a team of 8 people. I just bought them all your book. And now we're all saying, tell me more to each other. And I started laughing and I said, how do you feel about that? He goes, I couldn't appreciate you always when you worked for me because I worked for you because you came in and were making change and it was uncomfortable. And now that I've had distance, I see that you really actually cared about me. And I went, yes.
Yes. Okay. Those are those moments, those aha moments, and you get that feedback. It's fantastic.
Yes, especially with out of the blue, just out of the blue.
Yes, the unsolicited.
Yes.
Yes. So tell me more about Michael Sherlock, the lady.
The lady.
The lady. The lady Sherlock. I mean, how do you keep it all balanced? We were talking about balance and flow, and you really have found balance. Please impart your wisdom to myself and our viewers about how did you find this balance?
I found balance the hard way because I, like many of us, there were so many times in my life where I had zero balance. In fact, I remember the first time that I literally thought I was having a heart attack because I had chest pains that were so tight and my left arm went numb. And I went to the emergency room and they did the EEG or EKG or whatever, lots of G's and E's. And what we found out later is that I was so stressed that I had inflamed the cavity of my chest wall because of how I was dealing with stress. And I had that happen 2 other times throughout my life. And one day I woke up and said, one day this is going to be a heart attack. And you're not going to know it's a heart attack because you think it's just stress. And I said, okay, we got to figure this out. So I started working on different elements. And 3 years ago, I had started to meditate. And I was working on mindfulness. And then I was really starting to exercise more. And I was starting to journal more and get my life and business organized. And one day I looked at this and I said, it's amazing. Every day that I exercise at least 30 minutes and I meditate and I write in my journal, I get so much more done. I sleep better. I'm more effective and I'm happier. What's going on with this? So for 1 full year, I started in October of 17, I think. For 1 full year, every single day, if I did all those 3 things, I literally gave myself a gold puffy star on the calendar. And I tracked it. And over 1 year, I only missed 17 stars. And at first, I couldn't believe I'd miss a star. And then I was like, give yourself a break.
Yes, you're human.
Look how far you've gone. And to this day, I still give myself little gold stars in my journal and on my calendar when I've done all 3. And it's without a doubt clear that when I do those 3 things, my balance is so much better. My husband can't even believe how well I sleep. I can fall asleep, I can get back to sleep, I don't wake up worrying about things in the middle of the night. And that alone changes how I operate every single day.
So it's that trifecta of success for you.
Absolutely.
So it's working out, meditating,
Yep.
and journaling.
And the working out could just be a 30-minute walk.
Oh yeah, it's not like Eye of the
Yeah,
Tiger. You're not like running up
exactly.
the rocky steps at the art museum. Or
Sometimes
anything.
I am.
Oh my gosh, good for you. Good for you. I just thinking about it makes me tired. I think I did it once and I was like, all right. Yeah, I got up there and then I didn't want to walk back down.
Yeah, but it's just conscious. It's
just the
conscious movement and saying today I'm going to move. And it might be sometimes I have a weighted hula hoop. Sometimes I'll go up and I'll do 5 minutes each way, go down, do some more work, come up, do 5 minutes each way.
Breaking it up.
Breaking it up. Just whatever it takes to make sure that my body is moving, because the more it moves, all those pieces then come together.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Gold star. I'm going to start working on that because I do find that the movement works. I haven't been able to get still enough to sit still for more than 10 minutes, but that was an intention that I set.
Use an app. I've used a couple different apps.
Insight Timer, I think I have.
I use Simple Habits is the
Simple
app that I love,
Habits?
and
Okay.
it's wonderful. They're mostly 5-minute meditations.
Oh, 5 minutes.
Oh,
I can do
yeah.
5 minutes.
Oh, they're great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You can do anything. They have some that are 1 minute.
That's fantastic. So what tips do you, do you also how else do you keep your energetic cup full? So the trifecta of success, I'm just naming it that, but like, what else do you do to fill your cup?
I try very hard to make sure that I do a couple things. I try really hard to eat well. Doesn't always work well when I'm traveling.
Oh, it's really hard in
But
traveling.
when I'm very conscious of that, everything happens much better. And I've been sick for a little while, so now that I'm getting healthier, these days it's all about starting to plan my meals again and having that, and I can feel my energy rising from that. But for me, probably the most critical thing is that the love of my life, my husband, he and I make each other come first. And that has been the most joyous part of me finding real sense of I win in all these pieces because I get more time with him. We really love to spend time together, and that grounds me. So no matter how much, I might be getting off an airplane or going to speak to 5,000 people, some of those things will make you feel like, hey, I'm a rock star. Like I just flew in like the most incredible cabin on a Delta flight ever with a little door.
Living your best life, little door on a plane.
And I come home and my husband had made me tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich because he knows that when I've done traveling, that makes me feel like I'm home.
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, so that sounds like your why.
Yeah, probably, I guess so. I think that would be my why.
Yay.
Definitely.
That's so fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about, so you have your why, you have your downtime, you make time for yourself. Do you have any hobbies on top of like the going, traveling, between traveling and running your empire and writing books? What do you have any time for hobbies?
I do, not as much as I used to now, because I'm really in build mode with my company right now. So I'm adding people, I'm adding team. I've actually got a global team, so I have a couple people from the African continent.
Oh, yes.
And so
exciting.
working with people on an 8 or 9 hour time difference is really unique. And I have some global partners in other parts of the world. So the hobbies are not as much as they used to be, but in the summer, we found a way to create an urban garden. So kind of have the shared space with my neighbors, and it's just in the alleys behind our house, behind our house.
So
And
cool.
we've got cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers, and that really brings me great joy because even if I only have a few moments and I can walk out, take a conference call out there, just walk out, sit for a few minutes, when things are growing, that helps grow me.
Yes.
And the other things, I think right now I sacrifice the other hobbies because of, I'd rather spend time with my husband.
Yeah.
But, working out is part of that too. So I started boxing in the last year.
Wow.
I don't box a person, I just box a bag.
Oh, okay.
But but I go with friends.
Yeah.
And so it's a very social activity.
nice.
And it's finding ways to have the things you need to do also be with people you want to be with. And the more you do that, then it doesn't feel like one more step out of your life.
Right.
It feels like a completion, like I'm keeping the circle going.
It's adding to it. And you're surrounding yourself with people who lift you up.
Absolutely.
And that's so important
Oh, yeah.
to keep positive people in your circle and keep you lifted up like that.
I have a lot of people I love, and I have very few really close friends anymore because I have such limited time that I only want to spend that time with family and friends who are closest to me because that feeds me.
Oh, yeah. That's so good. It's so good. So, any like tips that you would give the young Michael, like little Michael, when she was kind of coming up, like any career or leadership tips that you would impart on her?
The things that I think of mostly are to trust myself more, and to really not just trust that you're always going to be able to put the smile on for things, but believe that smile inside you. And there were times in my life where I didn't believe that as much all the time. I was very good at, always having a smile. Everybody thought I was always happy. But I think there's a sense of when you know your worth and know your value, you can handle the bumps better and realize that bumps don't completely disrupt what you're doing. They're just bumps, and they're going to be a part of that journey. And if I would have liked to have heard that more. When people saw me, they thought, she's got it all together.
Yes.
She's always got it all together. And now people every once in a while go, wow, you're a train wreck.
It's refreshing.
God, you're human. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable with that now. I would have liked to have been more comfortable with that at 12, at 15, at
Absolutely.
18, at 25, at 35.
Right, I hear you there, because I think I'm starting to embrace that as well, of knowing your value and sharing that. How did you tap into that? Just one last thought on that. How do you tap into knowing your value?
I think it comes from self-reflection. When you're reflecting and you're not criticizing. So there's a difference. If you are really reflecting, you have to recognize the good points. And so when you recognize the good points, the bad points or those stumbles or trips aren't that bad, because they don't make the difference between you're good or bad, you're right or wrong, you're great or horrible. They're all parts of this continuum. So when you think about understanding your value, you look at those trips, those mistakes, those challenges, and go, oh, I see why I did that. Huh.
Okay.
Not going to do that again.
Not going to do it.
Or, you know what? If I do that again, I'm going to do it differently. I might still make that mistake in part of the way, but I'm not going to make that second part of the mistake.
Absolutely.
And that's when you start to go, hey, that is okay. And I am worth it, and I am worth my own reflection. Wow.
Delicious.
I sound very deep.
Delicious. What a good way to end it, right?
I love it.
Oh, we've run out of time, of course, but thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being on the show and just immersing us in all of this goodness. Now I'm sharing all the goodness that I get from her one-on-one with you. How can we find you? How can we find you?
Easiest way is to look up shockyourpotential.com and shockyourpotentialpodcast.com, and you'll find links to my books we have there as well. So anything you want to know, you will find there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Michael. And thank you all for watching Career View Mirror. We'll see you soon. We have 2 air dates, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard and Mondays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.